Okay. Dustin can hear us? Janet can hear us? Okay.
I got you, you got me?
Yep, you're good, Dustin, thank you.
At this time, I'm going to call to order the Wednesday, June 18th, 2025 College Township Council Meeting. If everyone who can stand will stand, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That takes us to public open discussion. That would be an opportunity for anybody online or anybody in the room to address council on something that's not already on tonight's agenda. Would that be what you're here for?
Yes, sir.
All right. I just ask that you take the podium, tell America what your name is, for those who don't already know. But.
Thank you. My name is Dan. I'm a wizard of the woods. My mother is with me. She has been a resident at the end of Mount Indy Road since 1963.
Wow. But I'm not sure I've seen her here at a meeting before.
She has been in a meeting
Okay.
before.
Yeah, not
It
recently.
may have been several years.
Okay.
Thank you. I believe I have 5 minutes, and I have 3 things that I want to say.
You have however long it takes to make your point.
Thank you, and I appreciate your time very much, but I have trees to tend and places to go. So, 3 things. I'm here to speak on behalf of my mother and the mountain itself. Concerning East Mount Indy Road specifically, please do not put dust retardant on East Mount Indy Road.
Put what?
Dust retardant, the soybean oil derivative used to abate dust abatement
Okay.
on the roads. I think College Township does it on many unpaved roads. So the dust retardant, the dust abatement technique involves a soybean oil derivative, and I know that the safety records are on file and all that's written, but it's not needed there. It's never been needed there. No one who lives there has ever wanted it there. No one up there has ever complained. The wildlife, I am certain, does not want it there. It might be safe for humans, but I have found 3 species of snakes, box turtles, toads, salamanders in it, in the oil. It would be better not to have that there. Mom won't go for a walk for over a month once it's been applied. There is no other way to access our property other than that road, so I'd like her to be able to go for her walks when she likes to. So consider that. Consider there is no need, there's been no complaint, there is no request. Save the time and the money and the equipment. Just don't do it. What you do everywhere else, not my business. What you do in the village might be different than what you do on the mountain. Consider that. Thank you. Number 2, if I'm on schedule, please consider not cutting vegetation, living vegetation along East Mountain Indy Road again. I'm talking about that last stretch, that about 1/10 of a mile from where the pavement ends to the trailhead. The erosion along the side of that road in the last couple of years especially has gotten very dramatic. The heavy machinery that we use to clear the pathways along the side of the roads have beaten it back to the tree stumps. In fact, you can see several trees with very extensive tree root systems in midair hanging over what is now getting to be a pretty deep ditch and ravine. I would think we'd be wanting to plant vegetation along streams in areas like that. I think a lot of people try to do that. And we have some beautiful red oak trees and mature shagbark hickory trees that are hanging in midair because we're cutting back things that we should be planting. So consider not doing that. On behalf of the bumblebees, the native bees in particular, I also am supposed to ask you to not cut the vegetation along the side of that road. It does not cause a safety or liability issue for traffic. Most of the traffic on that road now especially is foot traffic. Another reason not to put oil on it. The bees, there are patches of native spotted jewelweed growing there, touch-me-nots and Patience capensis. They are a very late blooming pollinator that the bees use before our next 8 months of winter. And they grow very extensively in that ditch, and every year, College Township with their equipment comes up and cuts it down to maintain the right-of-way, I suppose. The right-of-way is not being encroached on by the vegetation. There are places on that road where the right-of-way has been exceeded extensively by the road itself. The 40-foot wide College Township right-of-way gets pretty wide in some places. Let's just not make it wider. Don't cut the jewelweed, the native plants that are growing along a stream that flows into Spring Creek eventually. I would think they might even help for dust abatement. 3, do not pave Paradise and put up a parking lot. You've got a beautiful new parking area. It's way better than it being a dump. Don't even put lines on it. All you would be doing is increasing the amount of traffic you get there. You'd be encouraging more people to show up there. We don't need more. I have records for over a year of the number of vehicles that have parked up there, both on the end of the road and also down at the parking area. Over a year's worth, there have only been 2 days in a year and a half that have been a problem. And Dustin is here, and it's been pretty good. It's been pretty quiet. We don't have any problems. There's nothing to fix. Don't make it better. Let it be natural. It's a natural area. That 3 acres of land is more magical than you can imagine. The number of native species of plants and animals there is phenomenal. And where some might think of putting a path to go straight up to the mountain, at the very bottom of it, the first thing you run through is a patch of common milkweed. Right at the end of the mountain on the migratory route for the monarch butterflies on their way to Mexico. It's been that way for 60 years that I can attest, and I'd like to see it not change. If you put a path straight from that parking lot and pave that parking lot, you will have so many people going straight to the top of the mountain and back that you'll be able to see that 20-foot wide road from Beaver Stadium. I'd rather not see that. I know the wildlife would rather not see more people and more places that people haven't been in 100 years. Let it stay wild and free. Doing nothing is the best thing we can do for nature, other than be part of it. Plant a tree. Don't put up a no parking sign. Plant a tree. Humans will figure it out. The people that go up there are special. They all go up there to be part of nature and get out of town. So they don't need lines to show them where to park. If you need lines to know where to park, you probably shouldn't be up there hiking. Do you want a lot of rescues going on? Invite a whole bunch of people to go up there. Think about it. Just think very carefully before you do anything about it. Take it slowly. And that's all I have, and I really appreciate your time. And I just needed to get that out there. Don't pour the oil on the road. Don't cut the vegetation right where it's needed most. And don't pave Paradise and put up a parking lot. You can't undo it. And there is no problem. It's beautiful. Just don't tell anybody. We don't need more people. We just need the people that are wild and free. So thank you very much. And I have trees to tend. Mom, thanks for coming. Good night. Oh, I would love to talk more. You know where I am. Come talk to me up there. I'll show you some stuff.
All right, for the record, that's Dave Loesch.
Dan Lurch.
Dan Lurch.
L-O-E-R-C-H, but I am just a wizard of the woods.
But he's the informal caretaker of the foot of the Mountain Nittany trailhead.
I just happen to live there. I'm not a caretaker.
Well,
There's
he's
no official capacity.
informal.
Yes, I'm very informal. Thank you. Good night, Eric.
Good night.
Good to see you, Dustin. I hope you heard me.
He did. All right. Janet, anything that's not already on the agenda? Excellent. That takes us to new agenda items. Looking at Dustin first. Any requests? No? Here? Table? We have no public. That concludes new agenda items. That takes us into our agenda. First and only special presentation tonight is the College Township Finance Report. I'm assuming that's going to be
Kim?
Kim?
Yep, Kim Tishner. There we go. Thanks, Mike. Council was provided 2 reports for the financial statements as of the end of May 31st, 2025. There was a 2025 project status report and also a line item detail report. Were there any questions on those? Or?
Looking to my right. No? Are we going to go through this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we do that, and then we'll circle back around to see if there's any questions.
Okay. Alrighty. So College Township hired an HR specialist, and I thought it might be beneficial to go through all of the benefits that are offered to full-time employees here at the township. We have, it's really small over there. We have a medical and prescription through Benecon or PMHIC. And our employees pay 20% of that, the township pays the rest. We have a vision through Vision Benefits of America, dental insurance through United Concordia. I could read through all of these. Task does our FSA and dependent care flexible spending accounts. It's a cafeteria 125 plan. The township, and those are self-funded by the employee, the vision and the flexible spending accounts. The township pays for full-time employees, life and accidental death and dismemberment insurance, short and long-term disability insurance. Employees, if they choose to, can get supplemental life with accidental death and dismemberment insurance on that. The retirement plans, we have the 401A, which is contributed to just by the township at 7.5% of everybody's base pay as a full-time employee. And the 457 is a deferred compensation plan where employees can add more to their retirement, tax-free to them. It comes out pre-tax. Also, the benefit of opting out of the health insurance. Employees are paid 20% of the premium, and that rate fluctuates year to year depending on what the premium is. Employees get 5-year increments of longevity, which is a lump sum amount, and also 10 cents per hour added on their anniversary dates. The township does offer 11 paid holidays to full-time employees. Vacation, sick time, and personal time. Vacation is accrued varying. When you first start, you get 3.08 hours every 2 weeks with your pay, and once you've been here for 11 years, you get 6.15. Everybody accrues sick time at the same amount, which is the 3.69 hours. Personal time, if you start at the beginning of the year, you get the 24 hours. It's prorated thereafter by month. We have an employee assistance program. Now, this is not monitored by anybody, but it's offered to employees anonymously so that they can get the information they need about their health.
Right.
The township also offers tuition reimbursement. This has to go through proper channels and be pre-approved, and it does have to relate to your position here at the township. And this is a big one that takes a lot of time every year, the annual COLA and merit pay adjustments. COLA is assessed at the first pay of the year, and the merit is then assessed a couple months later because it takes a little time to pull all that together. So those are some of the things that the new HR specialist will be learning and helping finance out with, and eventually maybe doing a little more as she becomes familiar. Her name's Alba Armenta, and she started probably about a week and 2 days, 2 or 3 days ago. So a week and a half she's been here.
The 9th, right?
Yep. All right, we'll get into the finances. The fund balance at the beginning of the year was a little light. We had agreed last year to adjust the millage to realign those numbers. General was $1,709,000 for the year, or for the year starting in January. Fire protection was a little low, road machinery, parks, state liquid fuels, debt service, and construction. A lot of that in the construction is we're still waiting for grant monies to come in for projects that were completed. So the total fund balance at the beginning of the year was $2,290,000. As you can see, we rebounded really well come May 31st. The total of all fund balances was $4,226,000. The increase in the state liquid fuels was that the money had come in from the state for that on the liquid fuels, the funding. Our unrestricted amount of general fund is $1,213,000, and the restricted and assigned funds, all of the planned funds, was $3,933,000. On to property tax.
Kim, quick question.
Yes.
Red does not indicate negative numbers. It is indicating, it's just for clarity, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah, okay.
correct.
I just want to be sure that it's not misinterpreted.
No.
Very good.
Alrighty. Tax collection for last year, the property tax bills that were mailed out were worth $2,593,022. There was a little over $2,500 in exonerations, and the face amount of those bills collected was $2,539,013. Collection last year went really well. This year, we're at 5.5% of collection, which is good. It's good. It's not as good as last year, but it's good. Even though the amount's a little more this year for the face amount. Yeah, discounts allowed is a little more this year as well, too, but the total cash collected was $2,604,793. Non-property tax revenue highlights, the Act 511 taxes, property transfers, as you can see from 23 to 25, it kind of varies from year to year as far as how much. The earned income tax was a little low in 23, and as you see, people moving back into the workforce in May of 24 and 25, there's slight increases. But the earned income tax tends to vary simply because of people working from home as opposed to actually working in a township. Local service taxes, the LST tax, it varies as well. So far this year, there's $283,000 for LST tax, which is almost the same as 24, so not much variation in that one. Our notable revenue is zoning, surprisingly. Permit fees received, we budgeted $155,000. So far, we've received over almost $483,000 for that. So there's a lot of construction going on in College Township and a lot of people getting permits.
Yeah, and a big chunk of that is what's going on at the stadium.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of
No, yeah, I took that into consideration, but in comparison to years prior, it was we're considerably more active in the new construction in College Township. The plan review fees, and this is another one where you can see the significant increase. We budgeted 18,000. We're over 27,000 for this year, so punched up a bit. And plan extension fees, which we added an account for this to make it easier to track to see what we're actually getting in on this, was approximately at $1,000 the last year. So we decided to budget that amount for it. We've actually, so far in plan extension fees, already have over $5,000.
Those are just the ones that were paid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, so the financial challenges for this year is a lot of inflation pressure, a lot of increase in costs with the tariffs and delivery fees and all that. And not recently have we had this problem, but in my interactions with other townships and the municipalities in the area, they're saying that they're having a very hard time getting qualified employees to fill vacant spots.
Okay, now a chance for questions. Rich, anything? Susan?
If he doesn't have questions, I don't.
Well,
I went through it and I don't.
no offense to Rich, my questions will take on a slightly different angle. I think the first two bullet items go hand in hand.
They do.
Actually, wasn't inflation going to be taken care of day one? Oh, never mind. The things that you guys talked about, like that Adam chimed in, I think what might be beneficial for council to get maybe like a several sentence paragraph that just highlights those things going in.
Okay.
Because that's where we're at, we're at that level, other than Rich, who will immerse himself in those spreadsheets. Like something that just says the reason permit fees are 4 times higher than budget is we have a big giant project going on at the stadium this year, those kinds of things.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful to us when we look at this, because that's what we should be concerned about, I think. Trends that are out of the ordinary, surprises, I think should be shown is what trends are concerning, what things aren't concerning, which are great. Just a quick summary of that, I think, would be helpful. Appreciate all of this. This is good stuff.
Okay.
But I think for us, it might be helpful, and then Adam won't have to chime in. We won't have to listen to his comments,
That's right.
going forward.
Okay.
I mean, it was helpful to have you point those out, but
Yeah.
that was my question. Why? So that, I didn't even think about the stadium, so that was very helpful.
Yeah, it is mostly the stadium, right?
A big chunk of it is.
Yeah,
I mean, as Kim said, there's a lot of activity out there.
The soccer facility, that was
But
all last year?
that's
or
also,
some-
that, some of that would have been last year as well. But there's a number of projects that are
The bed tower?
up.
Or is that-
Well, the bed tower is
Last
likely
year.
gonna be last year as well. But, so most of this, the big numbers that are showing up here and to this point of the year are in fact from the stadium. So,
So just some
just keeping
narrative
that in mind. yeah.
to reflect that, I think, would be helpful. Just one paragraph.
Okay.
Could be the first page on the slideshow.
I actually do have a question, looking at this. The amusement taxes, they're budgeted for $35,000, and at this point, they're at about $3,000. What,
Well, we have two different types of, we need to think about, we have amusement tax and we have impact.
Right.
Okay. And while they kind of are calculated in the same way, to be honest, one is in the form of an agreement, which is the impact fee with the university.
State.
Okay. The other is an ordinance that we basically enforce. And so, for example, in terms of the amusement tax, we collect amusement taxes primarily from the spikes, as far as the baseball revenues at the gate, and season tickets, et cetera, as well as, at least lately, the other big generator of amusement tax has been events that are being held at C3 Sports. So usually it's one or more of those. There are also some special events that have been held that, for example, there was an event recently, at least partially a fundraiser or intended to all be a fundraiser at the Penn Stater. That was a ticketed event, and because there was a charge for the ticket to the
Got it.
event, there was also an amusement tax that was collected on that as well. So that's essentially the two different pools. But amusement tax should not be confused with the impact fee.
And I see
because
the
that's-
impact
That's
fee.
clearly a distinct and separate kind of a situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of the impact, I'm sorry, check that, I just did it. A lot of the amusement tax, by this point, some of that's just not been generated as of yet or reported. So, for example, over the last, I would say, 5 years, we have collected somewhere between $35,000 and $55,000 annually from the State College spikes.
So that
in
wouldn't have been
terms of
collected now.
amusement tax. And so that usually it all comes out in the wash, but oftentimes it comes out a little bit later in the year.
Perfect.
Correct.
So these are annual budget numbers, not.
These are
Yeah,
annual
yeah, the annual
budget. They haven't
budget,
been
yes. Not the half.
reduced. That is correct. They have not been reduced down.
Is the beer fest, is that amusement? Does that fall under the amusement?
Depending upon how it's structured, where's it going to be held this year?
It's in the parking lot.
Parking lot by Medlar.
Well, that would be an
That would be
event,
amusement.
That's correct.
yeah. And then the last one, last year,
In
right?
Beaver Stadium.
That was
Right.
in Beaver Stadium. That one was also an amusement tax event.
Oh, okay, so the impact fee isn't.
Yeah,
just
it's,
the-
yeah, the.
It's a type of event, not just venue.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay.
It's the type of event.
That makes
Yeah, in
sense.
this case, because it's a ticketed event and it doesn't have, obviously, it's not an NCAA, et cetera, et cetera. There are distinctions in the impact fee agreement for those. The amusement tax is a little more straightforward and more easily applied in some respects.
Hey, Dustin, you have any questions, comments? Okay.
No comments or questions, thanks.
All right, if not, any further comments from staff?
No, thanks to Kim. Alba has kind of hit the ground running.
She definitely has.
And I'm sure that as part of what she has been doing, she helped generate some of the information here in the report. But I think, I'm very, very pleased that Kim has the opportunity to work with Alba. I think we're going to make a great team, and so we'll make improvements and on the reporting and things like that. As far as the presentation is concerned, we can accommodate your request, so I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, thanks.
Thanks, Kim.
That concludes all of our special presentations. Tonight, we have no plans, so that'll take us to reports. We have the manager's report in our packet. Questions for the manager on anything other than the last bolded item, because I think we're going to talk a little bit more.
Right.
The manager's going to talk a little bit more about that. Questions for the manager on anything other than a municipal facility renovation? Dustin, anything? Okay.
Not
Adam?
clear.
additional information from the manager then.
The only thing I wanted to point out is that under solar power purchasing agreement, I believe it was was it Monday, Tuesday? Those documents were actually executed. So on behalf of College Township and the College Township Water Authority, I signed off on all of the solar power purchase agreement documents. Pam Adams is overseeing that process of collecting all those signatures, and I believe that all 10 have actually signed. So that component is done, and now they are all being sent to be signed by
Prospect 14.
Prospect 14, right? So, stay tuned. We're that much closer. That's it. That's everything additional that I wanted to mention.
Did you or Mike want to talk at all about the facility renovations?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, well, part of it's a status update, and part of it is basically gauging council's availability for a upcoming meeting. So just to provide an update, we've had an RFP on the street for our renovations to the administrative building here. Very successful for that. We've had 8 proposals submitted. On my cursory review, I can tell you that they were all good proposals, and that it's, going to be a bit of a tough slog for the committee to get through. That's why you're not seeing anything tonight specific to it. We were expecting 3 or 4, and we got 8, so it takes a little bit more effort to go through. In that vein, the RFP did specifically note that we would try to aim for selection in June. So the question that I have, one for the committee and then one for the balance of council, is an interest in a short special meeting to hear a recommendation from the committee at some point here in June, because recognizing our next meeting isn't until July 17th. So we basically would lose an entire month in that process, which we tried to hit the mark so we could talk about it during budget season for 2026. So that I kind of put out there. I've had some internal discussions with the committee, just gauging where we're at, and then I need to kind of get a feel for where council's at in terms of interest of scheduling a special meeting to have that discussion. We can handle it much like you've done in past years with the budget, where it could be a hybrid-based meeting, and probably something we could accomplish in about half an hour.
Okay, and if we don't have that meeting, then the timeline will,
Yeah,
planned
we're
timeline
gonna
will
kind
just.
of mess it up.
Yeah, we'd lose about a month.
Okay, and that's not good.
Yeah, right now, most of the proposals, save I think 1 or 2, hit the calendar that we put in the RFP, which took us to the end of October. At that point, we're pretty deep into budgeting and really near the tail end of budgeting. As we push out any further than that, it gets tenuous for budget development.
Okay, so that's really what the issue is. It's not the extra month, it's the bleed over into
Yeah.
Right.
budget planning.
Right.
It's a timing issue.
In order to
for
get an
us.
accurate number into the 2026 budget, we need to have that fall somewhere in that time frame.
Okay. Any opposition to polling, doing a very high-level poll tonight on availability and scheduling something to replace the July 4th, 3rd meeting we're not going to have? No? Dustin, are you good with a special meeting before July 17th?
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep this.
So, we're gonna decide on that, right?
Yeah, so what I'd like to do to make this as efficient as possible, assuming we're going to do a doodle poll, right,
Yeah, we can do that.
is,
Yeah, go ahead, Rich. I know where you're going.
You want to do it, or it's
Well,
your suggestion?
one question I will throw out there, and this is as much for the committee as anybody, where we're at in terms of our reviews. I know a couple of us are done. I wasn't sure where everybody else was. One date that's on the calendar, it's already on your calendar, is COG General Forum, which would be Monday of next week. That doesn't give us a whole lot of time for the committee to get back together and have a discussion, but I haven't seen evaluations. There may be consensus. I don't know yet. So that's one that I would be on the poll, but it's really contingent on the workload that's on the committee. So that's probably as much a question for Rich, Dustin, and the balance of the committee, Adam, Amy, and myself, as to whether or not we can hit that mark.
Do we think we can? Or do we want to just tentatively set it for that, and then if we can't, then do the doodle poll?
Well, I mean, that's an option.
We have to advertise, right?
Yeah, we could advertise. I think we could hit that. That is, I mean, yeah, yes, we can hit that because there's a Sunday. Yeah, we should be able to do that. So we could advertise a special meeting for Monday, the 23rd. Now, the idea there is that there would be a recommendation coming forward from the committee. Now, one of the things the committee hasn't done yet is the committee hasn't met since receiving the proposals. We certainly exceeded our expectations, as Mike said, in terms of the number that we received. We do have a scoring matrix that we're going to be using, but unless there is a significant front runner, there may be additional work that the committee may need to do in terms of an interview, likely a Zoom kind of a thing, interviewing prospective firms. That may be a decision point that the committee wants to make prior to coming forward to council with a recommendation. So I don't know if we end up having to do any kind of interviews. We're not going to make Monday.
That seems pretty aggressive.
So probably at this point, the best is a doodle poll, looking towards the end of the month, obviously avoiding the holiday, and see what everybody's available.
Well, the end of the month is
That's
next
still
week.
aggressive.
Still aggressive,
That's still aggressive.
right?
Because that's next week.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, then let's focus on that with the four of us here. Is there any day or portion of any of those last 3 days of the week next week, we'll say the 25th, 26th, and 27th, that we should avoid for the doodle poll? I mean, I've seen doodle polls go out where we can't get everybody together,
Right.
and then we've wasted a week on a doodle poll.
Yes.
For me, I can meet any of those 3 days, day or night. I can make that work, given the circumstances. Any other?
I can do all three.
I can make them work in the
What's that,
evening.
Dustin?
I'm available all 3 of those days.
Okay,
And I'm available in the evening all 3 days.
evenings, all right. So,
Evenings.
Rich,
I'll
Not
do what I
when-
do.
what's that, not Thursday night?
No, I've written off Thursdays.
Oh,
Yeah,
What-
whatever's needed, I will.
all right, with the preference to Wednesday then.
Oh, yeah,
All
I
right.
have no preference of
Oh, you
Wednesday.
don't, you're serious about writing off Thursdays? We can avoid
Yeah,
Thursday.
Wednesdays and, I have a team Wednesday and Thursday.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I already missed 2 Thursdays a month, so I'm not
So
really,
Thursday's actually better.
it's no worse.
All right, how many other, besides us four and you, who else at the staff level? Anybody?
Well, it's Amy and I
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Mike.
All right, then Amy?
I can do anything.
Oh,
Yes, I
I can do anything.
Almost sounds
I
like we
mean-
could schedule it tonight.
If it helps, I can be in on Wednesday at 4. So that way we're not bleeding over into everybody's evening. That's the one night I don't have patience.
Wednesday at 4?
If that's workable for everybody, we can make that work.
Yeah, it's within the staff workday.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Dustin, that works for you then?
Wednesday at 4? All right, no doodle poll necessary.
Perfect.
Wednesday, the 25th.
The committee will scramble here, make sure, see where we're at in terms of our scores, see if we need to throw together a quick interview with a finalist or finalists, and be prepared.
It's still a tight timeline.
Yeah, it is, but I think we can hit the mark.
Yeah, can we get something for the committee scheduled tomorrow
Yeah.
or Friday?
Tomorrow,
4
yeah,
o'clock
probably,
Wednesday.
yeah, my recommendation, let's shoot for a Friday roundup, if you will, of the committee.
Okay.
And that way, if we need to, we can reach out
later on Friday to any firms that the committee may wish to speak to in a little more, a little more in depth. Early next week.
Sounds good?
All right, doodle poll avoided,
All right,
and
well done.
any other questions for the manager on anything else on the manager's report? Oh, we already did that, okay, never mind. That concludes the manager's report. That takes us to COG Regional, County, and Liaison reports. By the calendar, we had 4 COG committee meetings scheduled since our last meeting. The first one after last meeting was Climate Action and Sustainability on June 9th. Dustin, did they meet? No?
That meeting was canceled.
Okay, I couldn't tell. And then Public Safety was scheduled to meet on the 10th. Did they meet?
We did.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yep, we did. We had an informational-only meeting. We didn't have any action items. We had Rob Lombardo from First Energy come to talk with us about storm management, reporting out to municipalities, managers, just sort of their process. He's the second public liaison person they've had in about 6 months. He's got 302 municipalities and 9 counties to cover. So whenever there's a storm event, he's a busy guy. But he was very helpful. I mean, he just shared some of the weaknesses in the system. He talks again about the lack of linemen, so it's difficult to maintain the lines and keep trees trimmed around the lines, and now we have an aging infrastructure. So with this last outage, there were a lot of distribution lines lost from main power sources to the substations, which is why we saw those much longer power outages for people. He also talked a little bit about some of the impacts that they'll see with changes in their meteorology and forecasting resources. So they're also going to be dealing with some fewer resources. So I think it was helpful. I know it was helpful for our group. This is the second time we've had someone come in just to give us an idea of what we might be dealing with in the future, because we will be dealing with more of these kinds of events because they're not one-offs. So very helpful. The other thing we did was we had Amy Farkas and Jonathan Ridley give us an update on the Emergency Management Council. So Public Safety wasn't really familiar with the Emergency Management Council, so Amy came and spoke to us. We talked about the Emergency Management Council Articles of Agreement when it was formed, the purpose of that, the contingency fund, how funds are accessed through the fund. And also we talked more about sort of high-level discussions on the reductions in FEMA funding, the changes in the impact, the per capita impact amounts that are being changed at the FEMA level. So the cost of disasters will quadruple before they can be qualified as declared disasters. So there'll be less money coming from FEMA, which will affect FEMA, which will affect PEMA. And PEMA has also put out the word that they want elected officials to understand the changes in funding and availability of resources going forward, that they anticipate more will fall on the counties and the local municipalities. So it was a good discussion with Amy. We talked a little bit more about some of the work that came out of the after action event that the Management Council did. There'll be 3 committees looking at things like the emergency management plan for the public, so communicating with the public. We do have an emergency management plan, and it was last updated in 2007, so absolutely no mention of wind and water events and how to cope with after storms. So a real focus now is actually looking at how to work with climate action and sustainability, and look at their climate action and adaptation plan and their outreach efforts and education. And looking at, educating the community on, a 3-day, resiliency plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been invited out to Liberty Hill and also to the YMCA to talk about 3-day resiliency with medications for seniors. So there's lots of gaps in what we're doing, but lots of opportunities to improve and come together. And I think Emergency Management Council and Public Safety will work more closely together, get to know each other a little better over the next months. And Pam Adams will be coming to Public Safety in July to talk about the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan and climate impacts and what we'll be seeing in the region in terms of public safety. So it was a good meeting. For an informational meeting, we kept busy. And then last but not least, oh, no, I had one other, but that was a township. I have my 2 townships I can report on.
Oh.
But he's got COG, so.
Yeah, Rich, you had finance on the 9th?
Yes, but just a follow-up question.
Yes.
For public safety. Was there any discussion about reviewing the appropriateness of the amount of the emergency management contingency?
Yes, we talked about that very briefly at the end of the meeting, so that'll be something we'll be talking about at an upcoming meeting, yes.
Okay.
And any feedback you have, right now, that's $100,000, and it has not been adjusted for inflation in the last several years, so there's about a $30,000 shortfall with what's in the contingency fund, because according to the formula for funding the fund, we're a little bit short. So, but nothing more substantive than that. So is there anything you'd like me to bring back to?
No, finance kicked it to ask public safety to
Okay.
review that. We had no
Yeah.
number. We weren't going to set a number for that. Finance gets to do plenty that other people should do.
Well, thank you for that.
Hey, would an example of an expense from that fund be what we were kicking around as an idea from the storm to cover the extra solid waste pickup?
Well, I mean, there were 2 options.
Would that be the source of that funding?
It could be.
Yes, there were 2 options. That was not the one that was ultimately chosen to address that
No, but if it
particular
was
issue.
chosen, it would have come
But
from
it
that,
was
or-
initially put on the
Yeah.
table for consideration.
And
Yes.
there's not a specific, there's not specific definition of how those funds can be accessed. The emergency management coordinator can access any of, or all of them, and then whatever he or she would access would come back to general forum, I think within 7 days for review. And we don't have to have a disaster declaration. So.
Right. Yeah, when it was set up expressly, as Susan just described. It was for the use at the discretion of the Center Region Emergency Management Coordinator, not the council,
Right, the
not
coordinator.
anybody else, but the coordinator. So that in the event that they needed to respond quickly, they would be able to secure contracts to remove a landslide, any kind of issue like that. If there was a need, that those funds would be available immediately with that 7-day provision that they come back to the general forum, to explain how those funds have been utilized. So it was absolutely set up to be an emergency fund. The fact that it was discussed at all, that there could be funds available for this particular issue with the trash collection, while it was an emergency adjacent type of an issue, it remains to be seen exactly how appropriate that would have been given a context of how that fund was established. Ergo, I think it was why the decision was made to find those funds elsewhere. So the emergency management fund that's in the COG budget was not touched for that purpose.
Well, and the members of the Emergency Management Council that are listed in the Articles of Agreement are all the township managers, the COG Executive Director, and the Emergency Management Coordinator. We don't have an elected on that. We do have the Vice Chair of the General Forum sitting on that, but that's not included in the Articles of Agreement. That was something we picked up on when we were reviewing documents. So we'll need to go back and look at that. The only place that elected official is mentioned is on the website page for Emergency Management Services. So we need to get that into the Articles of Agreement, because we may need to be accessing those funds in the future. So it would be good to cross our Ts and dot our.
That's great that you're reviewing the underlying documents, because that's a subject in several committees that I'm working, so that's
So
really
I want
good.
to tell you I did that, because I was told. I read that.
But
Poor Ben. I mean-
100,000 was set a long time ago. It may still be
Right.
appropriate, but
Right.
the cost of everything is going up and everything.
Right.
The example that was always thrown when I started was, if I had to rent a crane to lift, a bridge member off of something, I don't need to call somebody, that kind of thing. So, but
Well, and
it should be periodically reviewed, and it shouldn't be finance doing that, because it falls under the purview of public safety, so.
And Amy is really on top of working on that public messaging. I think a lot of the emergency problems we would be dealing with could be prevented if we do a really good job on public messaging and getting the word out. So.
That's all.
All right, then, Rich, on to finance?
Yes, met June 12th. As always, a good, productive discussion meeting. Lots of insights thrown out. Our main focus was the Strategic Guide to Services and Investments, the SIGC, pushing that to the Executive Committee to push out to the municipalities. We endorsed it from a form and structure standpoint. I made it very clear we were not there to litigate the various items in that. That's why it goes to the members and you do it with your peers. We're not a jury of one, trying to do that. The only thing that really dominated the discussion, other than trends go left to right versus right to left, those kind of things, was a discussion about, everybody's going through what we've already gone through, the short-term rental stuff. So some of the municipalities are tracking through the short-term rental application, I guess, whether they are short or long-term rentals. And so there was a big discussion about that at finance, and I said, finance isn't going to decide this. This isn't finance. This would be back to public safety and through the municipalities and everything. So I'll throw it out that code has the ability to do that. They have just begun doing that. Patton is one, and Patton, and I think the borough, they've started doing that for that. Dr. Schneider was ready to modify the rental application that day, and I said, go back to have that discussion in another committee that has that purview. So, but that took a lot of time going back and forth on that. But we moved on to, we got our first glance at the operating budget guideline. We can't fully adopt the guideline number till the June COLA numbers come out, because as a reminder, we finally got it, that it's a point in time, it's not an average of an average and all that kind of stuff, so that's coming in. And so the June 30th, what the COLA is, as calculated by the.
July 15th.
Right.
That's right.
That will finalize that. The other big item is healthcare. In previous years, Benecon had given us a glimpse of what they thought we were going to be at. They didn't do that. From my understanding, they haven't done that this year. So we need that number. That's a big, impactful number. Just as a reminder, last year it was 19.9%. So it was a huge guideline breaker and everything. But right now, just rough numbers, it's about 6% is what we're seeing. So that was our first glance, just to start impacting it. The next one, we looked at the municipal share formulas, which is the table A in our budgets and everything. The standard formula has been finalized. The special ones, the Active Adult Center, SHLO, which is based on distribution or checkouts, yeah, did not. I am happy to advise the manager that it appears that the standard formula, we are going to drop from 17.04 to 16.33. And for fire, down from 19.69 to 18.86. And parks from 17.79 to 17.05. So it appears that our stats are trend, that's the items that, play out. Sure. So, but that was the preliminary numbers that we saw were there. So we didn't, because of the length of the discussion on 6E, we didn't actually get any further on our fund balance policy update and everything. So we look forward to taking that back up in review. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Questions for Rich? A quick one. Having just been at SCLO yesterday, and I had to check the event I attended, I had to check the box for College Township. The municipal participation at the library is not the formula, it is a factor in the formula. I mean, population is still the base formula, and the use or books checked out or whatever they're doing is
It's a component.
multiplier or a factor.
It's a
Yeah,
component.
it is a
It's a
component.
component of the formula.
Okay.
My recollection is that it does carry a little more weight, because it's something that we were able to measure.
Yeah, and and I've got to say this, because you guys heard me say this over and over again. That really concerns me, because the library has, like many regional services, has benefit to everybody in that municipality, whether you use it or not.
Yep.
And whether you're using a component of it that you can actually track versus a component that you can't track.
Well,
So anyways, that was just me venting a little frustration over this, this thinking that there's a one-to-one correspondence between usage and value.
just a little history. I mean, that element was introduced years ago to satisfy concerns of a member municipality
Right?
for no other reason.
So maybe it's time, anyways, finance is doing a great job, and that is really nitpicky. I mean, on my part, that's really nitpicky. But every chance we get to go back and say, do we really need to do this? Especially if it was driven by one particular municipality when we were deciding whether we were going to expand or relocate the library. It's just one of those things that has inherent value across the entire region.
I agree. However, I would tell you that same municipality is all about having that factor.
All right, so the timing.
And you could make the same argument, I think you could make the same argument about parks.
Oh,
But that same municipality, I swear they want toll booths on the parks so they know who's using them when and everything like that.
well, we'll keep reminding them as best we can that
Yeah.
that kind of thinking, in my opinion, is a bit archaic and self-defeating. But to the extent that it's not totally driven by it, I guess we'll just have to accept that as part of the compromise we have being providing regional services. All right. Rich actually had to backstop Susan and I at exec, and I did remember the other item, and that was Whitehall Road Park update.
Oh,
the
and
other
you
component
were
of
doing
the
that as-
exec meeting.
Exactly.
We got some more update on the update.
So that was held on the 17th, and neither Susan and I were available, so Rich filled in for us quite adequately.
I did okay.
Look at the result.
Well, so I had already wanted to attend it for another matter, but then also there was discussion, one of the things that came up at finance was one of the municipalities was asking for more time for comments back from the SIGC. And I said, well, I understand that, I can understand that the most time that we can give you is great. But that's why we publish a calendar or a schedule at the beginning of the year so that you allocate that time because it is important and everything. And I said, but we're not going to decide that. We need to make our executive committee reps aware if we feel that that's needed. Now, the vote, it was part of the consent agenda. There was no discussion whatsoever about additional time. So, but it is a goal of Finance Committee and staff to get it out. I mean, a reminder, this is a totally new format. And I think staff did a commendable job adapting to it, moving it forward. And we'll just keep getting a little better every year. I mean, that's always been my goal, just get a little better every year and everything. But this was a seismic change from previous and everything. So the consent, it was in the consent agenda to push it out to municipalities. Each of you has a binder now. I brought those back from the meeting. The executive director report, as you indicated, Eric, Whitehall Road was a subject. So I think I shared at the last meeting that Ferguson Township's outside engineer kicked it back again with some new comments and everything. Stallshafer has not responded to those as of yet. That was 8 days ago. So they're working to see what kind of leverage they can have in that and everything. But at this point, it's still at a standstill until that stormwater as-builts are accepted by Ferguson Township and everything. So the bulk of the discussion at exec was regarding, I would call it decorum of members and discussions being had outside of public meetings about topics, to include personal shots at COG staff members. And so the executive director brought those to the attention and was asking for some guidance on, you know, how to move forward with that stuff. So as a survivor of a previous similar type thing, I was able to offer some things, and we'll see, you know, what they go for. But at the end of the day, it's the executive committee, the municipal chairs, you need to take the lead, you know, on that. That the executive director can't be scolding elected officials. That's just not, that's not a good thing.
Well, I think some of that is happening outside of COG.
Yeah. The thought that should happen is happening outside of, and
When we last were dealing with that, most of that was happening within the context of structured COG, or supposedly structured COG
Right.
meetings, and we just had to tighten up that structure and remind the chairs that. We now have some of that happening just out in the world.
right. Yeah, but it escalated to the point where we were going to have a meeting just to talk about that. And there was a couple of us that said, that's not a good idea, you know, one topic thing like that and everything. But, I mean, it does need to be addressed. One of the things that I stressed is if incorrect information is being put on the public record, correct information needs to be put on the public record. And how we accomplish that, there's a couple ways to do that. But
And that point was made at the school board meeting the other night, too. The
Yeah.
exact same point.
Yeah. So, but then we quickly got out of there, and once we got past that, then we were good. And the results were in your inbox today, being a canceled leave.
Questions for Rich on finance?
Yeah,
Or
executive.
I'm sorry, exec. Let's move liaison reports into C with staff, PC, and other committee reports. We don't have anybody here from PC. They did meet since our last meeting, right?
Last
Yeah,
night.
Lindsay's here.
we did. We met last night. We're still going through the form-based hybrid code. Last night, we took them recommendations from the outcome of the meeting prior regarding setbacks and encroachments into setbacks. So they were pleased with those, so we moved forward onto height standard discussions. We checked off some boxes and made some progress. I think we're getting into the groove now where, you know, we're gonna get some questions from the planning commission and bring them back to them in forms of recommendations, so then they sort of can accept those and we can move on to the next topic. We also discussed the Drybelvis Medical Center land development plan. It's an 8,000 square foot medical center that is going to be adjacent to the car dealership off of Drybelvis Street.
How many thousand?
8,000, like 8,300, I think, about that. And that's a preliminary plan that should be coming to council here in July. And that's all we discussed. So we're making progress.
I believe we saw a similar plan on a similar site, how many years ago?
It's been a few times. John Seth mentioned it last night, 3 or 4 times
Yeah,
you've seen this plan.
you've seen it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 times.
This will be the 4th.
It's almost like that.
Is it the same plan as we've been seeing, or?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Not much change to it at all.
All right. The only reason I'm seeing it is that's another section of sidewalk along Drivelvis to get to where we need to go.
And the sidewalk is on the plan.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's how I remember it. All right. Before we go to Janet, other staff or other township or liaison reports. Susan?
CTIDA today, an informational meeting only, we didn't have quorum. Just reporting back, the $25,000 grant that we made to the CTIDA, they decided to make small business grants, beautification grants along the commercial corridor. And on the first round, they had 2 applicants, and Your Building Center and Bonfire Barbecue were both awarded $5,000 grants. And so Carrie's already been out there to get the before pictures for the projects and then the after pictures, and then they'll use some of that information to promote the next round, try to attract more businesses and more applications. It was very successful.
As far as any other township?
Not really.
Dustin, anything on Sesquicentennial? Anything happened since our last meeting?
I don't have any updates on that.
Okay,
Oh, and I also attended the Parks and Rec, but Janet will report on that.
okay. So I think that's everything except Park and Rec, no?
No, I just wanted to alibi for the Schlow Library. It is usage, period.
Really? Oh. I was better off not knowing that.
Yeah.
But it turns out that it is reasonably spread comparable to the other,
Yeah.
okay.
The standard, comparative to the standard formula.
There's some semblance of reality there.
So I don't have to start telling people in there when I'm in there to check a box other than College Township.
Right, right. But it is a potential comment in the SIGC.
Yeah, I mean, it's time, I think, to at least consider it.
Well, just put it on the record, and then about 10 years later, then maybe it happens.
Well, think about this. Somebody is collecting all those checks, and it really isn't changing the formula that much from the population spread, right? And we can look into
Well,
that.
yeah, I don't have the,
It's
I
not
don't want to put a
drastic.
number out, but, yeah. But we can do an analysis of what it.
I mean, I will tell you that the borough takes a hit, because in addition to their population, university students that may come and utilize SCLO are also basically counted as State College Borough residents. So if there's truly someone that's being unfavorably treated in the current arrangement, in my opinion, in my estimation, it would likely be
The borough.
State College Borough.
And understand that my point is all philosophical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's
Just-
a civic institution.
Just as a point of
It's a
reference,
fee.
in 2025, College Township's standard formula value was 17.04. Our library percentage was 16.24.
All right, enough on that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you indulging me.
No, philosophically, I agree, again, and I put it in the same
And Parks
vein
and
as the
Rec.
parks.
And I've always said it about CATA,
Yep.
and we finally got around to adjusting the formula to take that, most of that out, so.
It's a reasonable allocation. I mean, there is no magic. We don't want to find another magic Miller formula or something like
All right, Janet, we saved the best for last.
Well, thank you first for your resolution about no rain. The thunder held off until after 7:30, so we completed the tour and hit all 3 parks. While we were at, or they were at, the slab cabin overlook, potential sites were noted for a bench, a sign, a trash can, and a mutt mitt. And talking about that area,
Janet, you went
You
went
muted
there.
yourself.
There you go, you're
all
back.
right,
Yep, good.
did you get the bench and
Yes.
the
Yep.
sign, trash can, mutt mitt?
Yep.
Right.
For the overlook, okay. Newly named, and while I'm talking about that, I'm gonna reference back to your earlier, special presentation. In the project status report, early on, the slab cabin overlook is listed as benches, tables, for 2025 at $3,000. And then later, in that document, about 30 pages later, when you're doing expenditures to budget, it's listed as park no name. I think those are one and the same. It's slab cabin overlook and park no name as per your recent naming authorization about a month ago. So just a clarification.
Oh,
But that's it, the tour occurred, there was no rain. That's it.
outstanding. Good work, whoever made that motion on the weather.
It was no, we were consensus the first time, consensus the second time, then we had to go motion.
All right. If I didn't miss anything, that concludes all the reports that would fall under B and C. And that takes us to D, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging reports. Mike, anything that we didn't cover at the first meeting?
No, just noting that tomorrow's Juneteenth. And that's my report.
And since there isn't anybody here to address council on any of those issues, we will conclude with reports, move to the consent agenda. As usual, there's 3 parts to it. The first part, CA1, includes 1 set of minutes from the June 5th, 2025 College Township Council regular meeting. CA2 correspondence includes 5 items. CA2A is a letter from Gannett Fleming dated June 4th, 2025 regarding a time extension for the Penn State Animal Diagnostics Lab swing space land development plan to October 13th, 2025. The second item, CA2B, is a letter from Glenn Roth, Potter Township Chairman, dated May 29th, 2025 regarding the State College Area Connector Road. The third item is CA2C, a letter from Bruce Lord, the Harris Township Chairman, dated June 5th, 2025 regarding safety concerns in the US 322 corridor. Fourth item, CA2D, is a letter from Stoll Schaefer, dated June 10th, 2025 regarding a time extension for the Clearwater Conservancy Community Center land development plan to October 13th, 2025. And the last item, CA2E, is an email with attachments from Sue Smith dated June 11th, 2025 regarding affordable housing. Third section of the consent agenda includes 1 item, 1 action item. CA2A is 25, that's resolution, 25?
No, just project.
Oh, that's 25-03 street resurfacing project bid. Sue, did you want to pull anything, Susan? All right. If there's no requests to pull any of these items for further discussion, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Second? Any discussion? No public here to comment on the action. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries, consent agenda adopted. That takes us to old business. Tonight we have only 1 item under old business, the single-use plastics update. The packet does include an introductory memo, and I suspect we could conceivably have action here on this, but before we do that, I think we want to hear from staff.
Sure. So I'm just going to work directly from the memo. Your last update came in January, and at that time, it was continue to work with the single-use plastics work group to move towards development of an ordinance. I just wanted to come back to you now with some updates on what that may look like and how it may encompass. And it really is funneled through two elements. So in the memo, you'll see each of the 5 elements that we are talking about in the context of what may be put into future regulations. The second box talks about the findings. That's based on the research of the working group, particularly State College Borough staff and others who have done some research across the Commonwealth with other communities that have implemented their own ordinances. And then the last box under each of those is follow up on a discussion that all of the regional managers had in terms of where they feel we're headed with this development of this ordinance. So I'm just going to kind of walk through those individually and happy to take questions as we move along. And I'll look at it across the table with Adam because I wasn't at the managers meeting, so he can provide context there as needed. But types of plastics to be regulated. Across the board, all the communities have banned single-use plastic bags. Others have banned straws and stirrers. Where that ended is the discussion with the managers at this point, focusing on strictly the bags. The prospects of doing straws wasn't tenable, or for that matter, it was probably rife with conflict. So that the manager's discussion was to focus on one element right now, and it potentially could expand over time, but the bags are the area to focus on.
Well, let's go for questions after each one then. Questions for Mike on that one?
I don't know if it's too in the weeds, but are you talking about exemptions for things like produce bags? There's, there's just, there are things we still see in places where there's no single-use plastic bags, but there are exemptions for the produce bags, the pharmacy bags, just other things.
Yeah, and those discussions have been happening within the working group.
Okay.
Honestly, as my time on this, it's an onion. Every time you peel back a layer, you find another one. So yeah, I think that would be an element that would be discussed.
But a recognition that
there's
it's not an
others.
across the board. There
Right.
may be some uses that would be excluded or excluded from the exclusion.
Correct.
A general question that will apply to all the categories, ask it now. The manager's feedback is a consensus of the center region managers, I assume.
Those that have been involved.
Yeah, those that have been involved,
Okay.
yeah.
Because when we get to 2, we see examples or numbers from municipalities that obviously go
Right.
outside the center region.
Right.
Okay, so when we get to 2, maybe you can tell us of that breakdown where the center region municipalities fall out of the 4 bullet points.
I was going to, who is on the working
Yeah,
group?
the managers, just for clarity, it's a good question. So findings are based on the other communities, not including the center region. The manager's feedback is just that, the participating municipalities, those managers had a discussion that would include Patton, Ferguson, College, and State College Borough.
And Harris.
And Harris. I wasn't sure if Mark had been involved yet or not.
Okay.
So, yeah, so you have those 5 municipalities that have had engagement in that discussion at the manager's level. The work group has, the only one we haven't seen consistently has been Harris because they're kind of new to the discussion, but it's been comprised of staff from each of those municipalities.
Right. Just a little bit of context from the manager's perspective. As you might imagine, there's a wide array of opinions about trying to regulate single-use plastics. It's absolutely true, as Mike identified, that if there's going to be regulation of single-use plastics, the primary focus should be on single-use plastic bags. Okay. So get that out of the way. But the other thing that I think everyone agreed to is that if in fact there is A, going to be a program, and B, if it's going to be effective, all the municipalities really need, in the center region, need to be engaged as, and participate in the project. There is no guarantee that if one or more decide not to participate, that this still wouldn't try to be pushed forward in the other municipalities. But there was clearly a recognition on the part of the managers that if this was going to have the effect as intended, it would need to be done by all municipalities to accomplish the overall goal. So I think that was just important to say. As I said, there's a fairly wide variety of opinion on the part of the managers about, you know, whether there should be or shouldn't be a single-use plastic policy here. But again, everyone did recognize that if it's going to work well, that everyone really should be participating here.
So moving into that second category or second element that was discussed as part of the regulations was a fee structure associated with the bag and how that would be distributed. Across the state, those that do implement an ordinance, they found 4 common fee structures. A standard fee, where 7 of the municipalities were charging a fixed fee ranging between a nickel and a dime. A minimum fee, you had 4 municipalities that had a minimum fee that were a dime up to 15 cents. No fee, 3 municipalities that charged no fee, left that to the business's discretion. And the last group was maximum fee. There was 1 municipality that has a cap on their fee at 10 cents. In the discussions with the managers, as Adam framed up, the thought was the ordinance language should be written to give the businesses the option to collect a fee up to a maximum amount per bag. And it was also recommended that any fees collected be retained by the businesses to offset their incurred costs.
Questions? I think the managers.
Yeah.
Okay, Dustin, no questions, or?
Yeah, I just for clarification, so the way, I don't understand, right? So we say that, you know, single-use plastics, we don't want them, you know, we say a store doesn't have to collect the fee, then how are we actually regulating it?
I think the model that probably most folks are familiar with is the Wegmans model, where Wegmans is utilizing paper bags and charging a 5-cent fee for those bags. Wegmans is keeping that and doing with it whatever kind of at their discretion. My understanding is they actually are donating that money. But that was the discussion both within the work group and within the managers was there should be some mechanism to charge a fee, but that fee should be passed on to the businesses or retained by the businesses to offset their cost of transition from a plastic inventory to a paper inventory.
So
So they'll be charging a fee to use a plastic bag?
No, paper. Yeah, they would not be allowed to use the plastic.
Right. So, but we're trying to regulate plastic bags.
Right.
Only
Okay.
certain kinds of plastic bags.
All right. Gotcha. All right, so because we're not regulating the paper bag, that's why they have the option to collect a fee, but they have that option no matter what because they're a business. I mean, I just think it's frivolous, it's not necessary. You basically just say you can't have plastic bags and the business can do whatever they want, besides have plastic bags.
They can do that today.
Right.
Yeah, just like Wegmans is already doing.
That's true.
All right, that's it, thanks.
But when the municipality sets this, that was my question too, was if the municipality is setting the fee, but the business is collecting and keeping the fee, it's really the municipality saying what the fee limit can be, that they're.
Right. Yeah, the way that this
I mean,
is set up is.
does the business have the option to
and
not
There
charge?
isn't a suggested number here, because nobody hit on what that number would be. But there
Right.
would be a theoretical maximum that would be approved by the municipalities, and that's the extent of the charge for a paper bag. And again, the concept here is that paper is more costly than plastic, and thus there may be some business reason for a business to try to offset some of those costs if they've been typically using plastic bags. But
I mean, some municipalities even regulate the recycled content of the paper bag. I'm not suggesting that. I mean,
yeah, that's, as I said earlier, there were a wide variety of opinions on the topic in general. And then as far as the specifics go, we spent a lot of time discussing enforcement and what does enforcement look like. And I will tell you that essentially, after some extended conversation, everyone ended up in agreement, amongst the managers, ended up in agreement that enforcement would basically be handled the way that we handle enforcement. It would be complaint-based and complaint-driven. So if a customer would happen to go to a Center Region business and at the end of their transaction, they walk out with a plastic bag, someone that might see that, or that individual receiving a plastic bag could lodge a complaint, likely with the corresponding zoning officer of that municipality, and then there would be a series of educational efforts that are going to be made and warnings that are being issued, very, very similar to the way that College Township handles all of its code enforcement. From notification that there's a problem to corrective action, and up until the point where there would need to be some kind of a fine or penalty associated with that. So, but we did spend a lot of time having that conversation. I do think that the notion of enforcement in the context of any kind of a plastic bag ban, doing it on a complaint basis makes the most sense.
All right, how about 3, implementation?
And I will note 3 and 4 kind of run parallel, so I'm going to try to take them both at the same time. Across the municipalities that were surveyed, implementation ranged anywhere from 6 to 18 months. When the managers discussed that, they felt that further engagement with the local business community was warranted to better understand needs and what that timeline should look like, which rolls directly into number 5, timeline and engagement. The thought that was put out there was the first quarter of 2026. That would involve public listening sessions and engagement with local business community late this summer. So we're already up on that at this point to allow for some further vetting and adjustment to proposed regulations. So again, they kind of tie together. Right now, we're in that window of that 6 to 18 months for a rollout. The longer this goes, that pushes probably a little deeper into 2026 for an actual rollout, should a ordinance ultimately be developed.
Okay. Well, based on the comments that I have heard or not heard tonight, I recall when this first came up, there wasn't a sense amongst council members that this was an urgent thing that required a lot of staff resources. However, in the spirit of being a good regional neighbor, we did commit the staff time to sit in the meetings and listen and bring us back feedback. That we would commit to being, not taking the lead here, but seeing how this process goes, keeping us updated, and staying committed at that level. I sense that that's kind of where we're still at. Thoughts, comments? That's what we're looking for tonight, right?
Yeah, you've provided some already, some discussion around those elements. But yeah, I think that's for me as much as anything too, that check-in to see where council is on this. I want to keep coming back to you to see as this thing moves through each of its kind of gates as we move towards potential development of an ordinance.
And it seems like there is general consensus on the important pieces among the local municipalities, that should this keep moving forward, there isn't. I mean,
Yes.
no one's disagreeing with the enforcement.
No.
No
the-
one's
That's
disagreeing
correct.
with the approach when it comes to cost.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, the cost, and, you know, Dustin raised a very good point. You know, one of the arguments that one of the discussion points that the managers had to do with, won't this simply over time take care of itself? I.e. Wegmans, you know, they've introduced it on their own. They're doing some of those types of things right now with bags. Now, they've chosen to charge a fee. I think it's a very interesting element that Dustin brought forward about, you know, maybe there shouldn't be any kind of a fee that is associated with a program that is initiated by the municipalities to ban these bags. That it is what it is. It's going to be enforced by complaint, and that businesses will, at some point, simply just need to comply with that. So we've had wide-ranging discussions, but generally, I think the consensus is it could work, and there's varying opinions about how well it's going to work. I think that is probably the best that I can say.
Okay, Dustin?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Adam. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of round out my comment on that. For me, it's simpler, right? If we don't impose a fee that removes all that and we focus on the regulating of the plastic bags, that's kind of how I see it. You know, at this point, don't worry about other bags that aren't plastic bags, because that's what we're really going after. And then, yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, just as I have before, I'll just say with my comment, yeah, I'm in support of what I think logically comes out of this as the next step is us, you know, coming back with implementation proposals, right? You know, those type of things. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. Then there seems to be, at least Dustin's point, seems to be supported by Adam. Any objection to that being what we take back to the table in the discussion? I mean, in the context that I framed this earlier, that if this continues to move ahead and if there is a consensus, you know, we're willing to participate so far, but consider this. Is that a reasonable
I think that's
response?
entirely appropriate. You know, again, the more I've sat through the discussions and we've talked through the elements, I would agree with Dustin, simpler's better, particularly for this, because you very quickly go down the rabbit hole with single-use plastics. And, you know, Susan, you hit on a point already. Once you start talking about plastic bags, what type are you talking about? And it was the same discussion with straws and stirrers, and so it can get complex very quickly. So the more you can simplify it and the more it's understandable for the end users, I think the better off you are.
So
And it
there's
also-
a second comment. I mean, I see heads nodding as you say that. Susan brought that up. We have Dustin and Adam's point about the fee, simpler is better. And then I'll go back to us saying we will participate should a reasonable set of rules come out of this.
We will consider
And that's what I said.
Participating.
We will continue to consider participating. Our hesitancy early on was that we would not commit staff time to take the lead on this.
Right.
But-
And there was no structure. I mean, it was a concept, it was an idea, and the working group has gone back and has now kind of put some meat on the bone. The managers have reacted, at least on one occasion, to what the working group has done. But I think that there's probably a lot of room for refinement. And certainly with respect to any of the implementation conversations, those need to be teased out quite a bit yet.
All right, so are you comfortable then with the feedback, being able to represent
Yeah.
council's feedback?
Yep, I think that's entirely appropriate. I think we are the first ones out of the gate with this discussion at this level around these points. So, now is to sit back and see where everybody else lands too, and we'll have a discussion once we all regroup.
We're not saying businesses can't charge the fee.
Sure.
They can make their own decision about the fee. That's up to them.
Providing them latitude. Yep.
All right, Mike, thanks, and Adam, thanks for continuing to be good partners regionally, even when we're unsure that this ultimately will work or is even necessary, but in the spirit of cooperation. All right, that concludes our only old business, and gosh, we have no new business. That would then take us to staff informatives, which we have some paperwork in our packet. Staff, anything to add on top of what is in there?
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is the staff informative number 1, which is the ordinance enforcement officer report. And you'll see that there are a number of grass complaints in terms of high grass. Expect more to show up, given the conditions that we're under at the moment, weather conditions, lots of rain, coming heat. But we've had a few successes, right, Mark?
Yes.
And did you want to mention anything in general about
I was
those?
going to speak with Mr. Bernier offline after the meeting.
Oh, that's
I
fine.
noticed today.
You should see it for the remainder of the summer.
Good. So we're staying on top of that as best we can. Again, when we receive complaints, Mark has been instrumental in helping to coordinate responses based on complaints with with the Welderoff properties off of Squirrel Drive that need attention periodically. And so he's done a good job working with his contacts to be sure that that's handled expeditiously. So thank you for that.
Well, and I will say that I appreciate that. As a council member, I think the way we handle that, with that personal touch, and it works. And when we have to go further than that, we do. But everybody gets the opportunity to respond accordingly. But that's...
Yeah, Mark can tell you that the mantra that we have is compliance, not fines. And we will work with everyone to get them into compliance. There are certain situations that no matter how well we might try to work with somebody, that fines are the appropriate way to go. But
And that's only fair to the people who do comply the first time, that you distinguish, those others from them.
so that was all that I had. I just wanted to draw your attention to that.
All right. Once again, any questions on any of that information that's in there? That would take us to other matters. First from staff. Anything?
Only note is no July 3rd meeting. Next meeting will be the 17th.
The next regular meeting.
Next regular
in
meeting,
July.
setting aside a special meeting.
Council. Dustin, anyone else? Anything else under other matters? If not, sounds like the rain has stopped momentarily. It might be a good time to adjourn.
We have another severe thunderstorm warning.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned.